The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Leslie Last, Director of Programs and Policy with Achieving the Dream. Before we begin, I'd just like to take a few moments to explain how to use the GoToWebinar technology in the hope that it will create an engaging meeting for us. In particular, you're looking at a screen. In particular, I'd like to point out some of the features of the GoToWebinar. I'm going to show you some of those features that make our presentation and our conversation more interactive. You each should see on the control panel on your screen right now. If you don't see it, it's because it's been minimized, and you can pull it back out by going to the Grab tab, which hides and shows the control panel. There's also an attendee list where you can see all of the participants on the call. And you'll also see a raising the hand function. If you have a question, you can raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon on the control panel, and I can unmute your line. Just so we can test to see if this works, if you can hear me, can you please raise your hand? Let's see, how are we doing on the hand raising here? Are we good? Some people are raising their hands, and others maybe just don't want to raise their hands. I'm going to tell you now about how you can send us a question or a comment. So if you're having any kind of difficulties, you can send us a comment or a question about it. Another way for you to participate is through this question pane that you'll see up here. If you want, you can type in your question in the question pane, and I can read it to the group. All of these panes can be expanded or minimized by clicking on the plus or the minus buttons that are at the top left of each pane. One thing to know, in the past, we have occasionally had some audio trouble. We had a little bit of that before we began the webinar today, and apologies for that. If for some reason you're having trouble hearing the webinar, you will first want to make sure you are not muted on your personal phone, or perhaps you may need to enter the audio PIN number that you were given at the beginning of the call. If checking your phone and checking to see that you entered the audio PIN do not work, you can always hang up and call back in, and be sure then to enter your audio PIN. Okay, so let's begin. As I said, I'm Leslie Last, Director of Programs and Policy for Achieving the Dream. We're delighted to have all of you here with us today, and glad that you could join us to hear about the 2014 RFP process for colleges that want to join Achieving the Dream's National Reform Network. As you may know, Achieving the Dream leads the most comprehensive non-governmental reform network for student success in higher education history. With more than 200 colleges, 100 coaches and advisors, and 15 state policy teams working throughout 34 states and the District of Columbia, we help 3.8 million community college students have a better chance of realizing greater economic opportunity and achieving their individual dreams. I'd like to take a moment to introduce the other panelists on the call today. With us are Carol Lincoln, Achieving the Dream Senior Vice President, Meredith Hatch, Associate Director of Programs, Sarah Hollister, Associate Director of Programs as well. And also with us is Melanie Mulvey, our Program Coordinator, who's been instrumental in developing this webinar and who'll be assisting us in running it today. Take a look at the agenda. We'll begin today by giving you an overview of Achieving the Dream, and we'll then walk you through the proposal process itself. There will be time for questions at the end, but please feel free to send any questions you might have at any time during the webinar by entering them into the questions pane, so we can be sure to address them. Let's first today hear from Carol Lincoln, who will talk a bit about ATD's history, describe the Reform Network as it exists today, and discuss the benefits of joining Achieving the Dream. Carol? Carol? Bear with us for 1 second. Carol, are you with us? Okay. We'll come back to Carol in a few minutes. But first, I would like to, let's take a look then at let's move forward to the process. We'll come back and talk in a little bit about the history and what we're doing today and what the benefits are of joining our network as soon as we can get Carol back in. But I'd like to spend some time walking through the process of preparing and submitting your proposal. Many of you have no doubt already gone to our website where you've looked at the documents. You may have a lot of questions about what to do with them, so hopefully we'll have a chance to answer your questions today as we're going through. When you're looking at this page, you'll see this page on the ATD website, and you can get to it in a number of ways. You can use the link to it from the emails you've received from us. You can type in the URL that you see at the very bottom of the screen here, the Achieving the Dream URL, or you can go directly to our website at www.achievingthedream.org. Once you're on the site, if you look at the very top part, you'll see, once you're on the site, you'll see a navigation bar. At the top of the page, you'll see a heading called Get Involved. If you look at the top of the screen, you'll see Get Involved. You'll then click on that arrow. You'll see the word Join. Again, you'll click on that, and you'll see New Cohort RFP. Click on that, and you'll be taken to the information that appears on this screen. We recommend that you follow the 6 steps you see here in the order in which they're presented, so that by the time you're ready to complete your online proposal, the 6th and final step you see on the screen, you'll be prepared for. You will have gathered a lot of information about our Reform Network, and you'll also have had a chance to speak with others who are already in the network. If you look at number 1 first, you'll see that we've prepared a document containing general information about the Achieving the Dream model and the mission, as well as additional information about our history, benefits of being an ATD college, funding requirements, expectations of being an Achieving the Dream college, and key dates and deadlines. One thing to note here is that you'll see that there are links that are highlighted in blue for these documents, which means that they're active and that you should be able to click on them and easily download any of these documents. In the second item, you'll see that we have asked you to gather your core team members, and you'll notice a document entitled Suggested Team Composition. When you open that document, you'll read the description about Achieving the Dream's model for institutional change, one that uses a team approach to generate energy for and reinforce commitment to change. The core team will oversee and guide the institutional reform work and assure the broad engagement of all stakeholders. Achieving the Dream institutions are required to have at least 6 core team members: the president or CEO, the chief academic officer, the director of institutional research, a key faculty leader, and a public information officer. Once you become a part of the Achieving the Dream Reform Network, you will assemble a data team of institutional research staff, faculty, and other staff members who will be able to conduct an in-depth examination of qualitative and quantitative data on student outcomes so that you may diagnose institutional strengths and weaknesses in student achievement. The data team collaborates with the core team in developing institutional strategies for student success. I'm going to stop right here, pause for a second, and come back to this, but it appears that we have found our Carol, and she now is going to be talking to you about our history, what ATD looks like today, and the benefits of joining our network. Carol.
Hi, Leslie. Am I coming through this time?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay. Sorry about that. Another little technology snafu. Sorry about that. But thanks again for the invitation to share a little bit of where we've come from and where we are and where we hope to go. I think most of you know that Achieving the Dream has a 10-year history. It was back in 2003 and 2004 that the Lumina Foundation was the first one to really decide that they were going to invest substantively in trying to increase graduation rates for community college students. They were looking at national data. They knew that community colleges had a superb track record as an open access institution. But the data that they were looking at the time was really disturbing because, as many of you will realize now, what we were discovering was that So many students were coming in and were not actually completing a credential that they could use in the marketplace. And so with that, the Lumina Foundation invited 7 national organizations to work together on a design, a comprehensive design, on how to tackle this problem and how to make a serious, serious improvement in the outcomes that community college students were experiencing. So with that, we first started working with 26 colleges, and each year kept growing the number of colleges and growing the number of investors in this work, kept evaluating and improving the results, kept trying to learn from the experience of the early colleges in this work, and then got to the point at about 2009, 2010, where all of the funders at that point and the organizations working together said, where is this work really going? Is there enough here? Are we having enough progress? Do we have enough hope for really changing the dynamics that this should be an effort that gets sustained? And the decision was reached in 2010 that indeed what we needed to do was to create a nonprofit organization that had total responsibility. The only job it had as an organization was to work on increasing community college student graduation rates. And so what happened was an independent nonprofit organization named Achieving the Dream Incorporated was created, was established with a national office, and now currently sits with its headquarters in Silver Spring, Maryland. Today we've got 175 institutions that remain active. That includes a huge number of those that started way back in 2004. So the network is rich with colleges that have a lot of experience, and it's also, of course, got colleges with newer experience, because each year we've taken in a new cohort of colleges. Right now our footprint is in 34 states and the District of Columbia. You see the number of students that are served by the institutions that are in Achieving the Dreams network. There have been as many as 200 institutions from time to time. We currently work with state policy teams as well as colleges. Let me just say a word about the state policy teams. The model that was created by the national organizations was one that said colleges will have a problem. If they do this work totally on their own, they're eventually going to bump into certain state regulations, policies, and actually certain federal regulations and policies that are probably going to inhibit the innovation that they want to put in place. So we created a design that said that it was just as important to focus not only on institutional change work, but also to focus on policy development work. So there would be an environment within each of these states that was very conducive to reform and innovation, and actually encouraged it, and also tried to encourage dissemination of best lessons across the state network. So we are working actively right now with 12 of those states that have those kinds of networks in place, even as our footprint is in more states, but this is where you'll find concentrated work on both policy and institutional change. The other bullet that's on your screen mentions 29 grants that we've made. One of the things that has happened in recent years is some of our investors have recognized the power of our institutions to really be pioneers in the field and testing new strategies. And so what they've done is they've given Achieving the Dream resources to make it possible for us to run periodic requests for proposals so that we can give colleges an opportunity to dive deeper into such things as faculty engagement or peer coaching, or we had another one that was on financial literacy. But these are investors who say they want to work with colleges that have made the commitment to student achievement, that have made a commitment to build a culture of evidence and inquiry, and are really ready to dig deep into some experimental work. There's a number, I'm not sure which slide is going to come up next. Are we going to, aha, I thought it would be benefits, and it is. In the RFP document that you have access to, there's about 2 or 3 pages of benefits listed for your consideration. And some of these are highlighted on the screen. I try to call a sample, a fairly significant sample of our presidents every year to get feedback from them on what's working well, what's not working so well, how are they thinking about this work, how could we provide additional support to their colleges. And I will tell you that inevitably what the presidents will say is that there's several things that stand out for them as real benefits that they value highly. First of all, they really value the opportunity to work with a coaching team, with a leadership coach and with a data coach that are outside experts that come in periodically throughout the year and work with the core team and the data team. Though that outside help keeps the college to focus on their work, gives them suggestions on how to move forward, helps them provide connections to other colleges in our network that may be doing similar work or facing similar challenges, and really being what we've called a critical friend, where they're there to say things to you that maybe are hard to say to yourself, but are important conversations to have, like what does it really mean to be having an equity agenda at our college. So presidents say that is very, very valuable. They also say the other thing they like so much about this work is they like to be connected in a national reform network where there are lots of opportunities for peer learning. And they like the idea that they can come to a national event like our DREAM Institute that's coming up in February, and they can learn from peers. They're not necessarily only getting exposed to national resource people, but they're hearing about people that are like them, that have got students like they have, that have budget crunches like they have, that have policy limitations like they have, and that therefore are getting some good advice and help from them. But in addition to the learning network and to the coaching work that is always rated as essential, you have some of these other things that people also see as benefits to being part of Achieve the Dream, including the help we can provide on communications and media, the opportunities we have for giving you grant opportunities and connecting you to other colleges, and the opportunity to use the Achieve the Dream database to do some benchmarking with other colleges.
Okay, thanks so much, Carol, for that very informative overview and for giving us some of your thoughts about the benefits of being part of this network. Before we move on to a discussion about continuing our discussion about going through the proposal process itself, I'd like to take a moment to ask if anyone has questions in response to Carol's presentation about the Achieving the Dream Network or about the benefits she described. Remember that you can press the raising the hand icon on the control panel and we can unmute you, or you can send us a question and we can read it. Some of you have already sent us questions when you registered for this webinar, and most of them have to do with the application process itself. We hope that these will be answered for you as we go through the process today, but we encourage you to send any questions by typing them into the questions pane as we go through the webinar, and we'll respond to them at the end of the presentation. Are there any questions so far? Just giving 1 or 2 seconds here to see if anybody wants to say anything. Nope. All right, then, we'll move on. So going back to what we were talking about a little while ago, we were looking at the process itself, and you were seeing a screenshot of the screenshot of what you'll see on the ATD website when you go there. And we were talking about this very important piece about that you'll see in number 2 about putting together your core team. Just to reiterate, we talked about the fact that you're required to have at least 6 core team members, the president or CEO, the chief academic officer, the director of institutional research, a key faculty leader, and a public information officer. You're also asked in your application to consider including others on your team from across the college community so that all voices are heard and represented as you move forward with your Achieving the Dream work. These include other influential and critical members of staff and faculty. Carol, I'm wondering if you want to add anything more about the composition and the responsibilities of the core team and say anything about the data team as well.
Okay. Well, first of all, the core team starts small with the required members that Leslie named and that are noted in the RFP. But the idea is to grow that core team over time so that more people have a voice in the planning and the decision making and then the ultimate monitoring and corrections that are made during implementation period. So what Achieving the Dream encourages you to do is to think really broadly about where are all these voices on your campus and in your community that have something important to say. Certainly student voices, faculty voices, all of those are important. And one of the things that happens when you work with your coaches is that they help you come up with different ways of more broadly engaging a larger core team. You don't, I know you don't want to get so large that it becomes bureaucratic and you can't move, but there are ways of building out your core team so that you get representatives on that, and then you have special events where you can bring in larger numbers of faculty and staff to be part of the conversations. The data team is a little different than the core team. The core team is ultimately responsible for the planning and the implementation work and the oversight, but the data team is an essential group of people. What we encourage you to do is to pick people for your data team who aren't afraid of numbers, who aren't afraid of data, and that typically means people from your IR department if you have one. Sometimes it means people from your math faculty or maybe your social sciences who are comfortable with reading charts and understand the power of quantitative and qualitative data. But the idea of the data team is that they're kind of the first ones to dig into your student outcome data, which we ask you to look at in terms of cohorts. They look into it, they try to understand it, they try to interpret it, and then they present it back to the core team and the larger college in order to do some of the fine-tuning and messaging that really does require some sophistication in terms of saying, what is the meaning of this data? What do we really take away from all of this? So that's primarily the role of those two teams.
Okay, thanks so much. All right, so if you take a look again back at the screen, number 3. In number 3, you'll see that we've provided you with a copy of the questions that you will ultimately be asked to answer online when you go on to submit your application. And so we suggest that once you've gathered your team together, you meet to discuss the questions and to formulate your responses so that you have them prepared when you go online to submit the application. In number 4, you'll see that we provide what we call our leader college contact list so that you can get in touch with presidents and core team leaders from our leader colleges and find out what it has been like for them to be part of Achieving the Dream. And also, you might want to take note of this on page 15 of the General Information and Submission Guidelines document. You'll find more information about leader colleges and about questions you might ask of them. Sarah, I'm wondering if you'd like to say a few words about leader colleges and your role with ATD.
Sure, this is Sarah Hollister. I'm an Associate Director of Programs, and happy to be on this call with everyone. One of my responsibilities here at Achieving the Dream is supporting Achieving the Dream's leader colleges. Leader colleges are colleges that have been within the Achieving the Dream network and gone through the process of planning and looking at their student success data and really starting to move the needle on student success. So to become a leader college, there's an application process that includes a performance and a practice criteria that these colleges, to become a leader college, must demonstrate that they've not only increased student success on one of the 5 Achieving the Dream student success measures, but they also need to show a certain level of progress in implementing the Achieving the Dream model, which, as I'm sure you've read in the RFP materials, includes it's an institutional change model that includes committed leadership, broad engagement, data-informed decision-making, equity is central, and then, systemic institutional change. So leader colleges are really a resource to you. They all know that they will be receiving phone calls, and you should really feel free to ask them about their process of going through Achieving the Dream and how it has helped them move the needle on student success. So I'm happy to answer any questions after the presentation that you might have about leader colleges or getting a hold of them. But please know that these are colleges that have been there, gone through the process, and they're really looking forward to answering any questions that you might have.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Sarah. Okay, so if we look at number 5, again back to the screen, number 5, what we have here is a template for what we call the readiness assessment, or a readiness assessment. And while you don't have to complete this until you're accepted into the network, we recommend that you look at it as you are thinking about and discussing your responses to the proposal questions, because it does offer an opportunity for you to begin a process of self-reflection and discovery. Meredith, I'm wondering if you have anything you'd like to add about this.
Sure. Thank you, Leslie. So again, I'm Meredith Hatch. I'm an Associate Director of Programs here at Achieving the Dream. And Leslie was talking about the readiness assessment as a tool for self-reflection and discovery. If you're accepted into the Achieving the Dream network, you'll use this instrument to assess your readiness, and you'll use it specifically at the new college kickoff event. Then in subsequent years, as you progress through Achieving the Dream, you'll revisit this assessment so that you can reflect on your progress. So thank you, Leslie.
Okay, thanks so much. Okay, so the very last, number 6, the very last item, of course, is one that where you've gone through the other 5 steps, and now you're ready to submit your proposal. What you can't see here, but what you can see on the actual screen when you go to our website, is the button that you would click on to get to the RFP, and we'll take a look at that in a few moments. Okay, so the next screen then, just to reiterate, these are the, so after completing the first 5 steps of the process suggested on the website, and again, these include reviewing the general information and submission guidelines, looking at the suggested team composition, looking at and answering or drafting the RFP questions that you see on that document, looking at the leader college contact list and contacting at least one leader college, a core team member and or a president or CEO, and last, looking at and reflecting on the readiness assessment that you'll see in the template that we've provided. Once you're ready to do that, then as I said at the bottom of the page, where you have found these documents, you'll see a blue button that says click here to begin your proposal. And when you click, you'll be taken to the first screen of the proposal application. That's not what you see here. We haven't provided that first screen because it just simply asks you to give the name of your institution, and we've not included a snapshot of quite a number of the screens that you'll see when you do the proposal. But we thought we would give screens that we thought we would put screens here that we thought you might like some additional information from us. What is important to point out here at the screen that you're looking at is that throughout the application there are asterisks next to all required information, and you won't be able to move to the next screen until that information is completed. You'll see a red message to you coming up if you haven't completed it, and it won't let you progress forward. Okay, next is a slide about core team members, just to say a few more things about that. So as we said, you'll need to have you'll need to come prepared to list 6 of your core team members, as well as provide a very brief biography for each one. And as we discussed earlier, by the time you've reached this point in the process, you should already have assembled that team, and you will have already wanted to draft everything so that you're ready to go when you get to the proposal. The next screen is kind of the meat of the proposal, where you're asked to provide narrative responses to a number of questions, and you will have prepared responses to these before you've come online. one thing I want to say, we understand that since many of you are at the beginning of the process of focusing your institution-wide efforts on a student success agenda, you may not feel that you can answer all of the questions as thoroughly as you might like. We ask only that you answer each question to the best of your ability and that you do not leave any questions unanswered. Some of you may have questions about the length of your answers. We suggest no more than 2 paragraphs per question or sub-question. So you'll see here there are questions, but in subsequent screens there are actual components, maybe subcomponents to some of the questions. So no more really than 2 paragraphs each. Carol, do you have any other tips about answering the narrative questions?
Thanks, Leslie. I do. I want to say something that I say on every webinar that we do each year on this application is we really want you to level with us. We want you to tell us the way it is. This application is not about trying to showcase everything that you're doing superbly because you feel like you might be in a competition and that's what's necessary. What we're more impressed by are the applications where colleges are saying, we're facing a significant problem. Our data are suggesting, and then they might say, we're in a single-digit completion rate, and we're scared about that. We're worried about what it means for our community. That kind of honesty and that kind of then a discussion about where you believe that participating in Achieve the Dream could help you address some of these challenges, that's going to be the convincing application to us, not the one that comes in saying that everything's been figured out, everything's fine, and we just really want to be recognized for all that we've achieved. So that's my message is please tell us the real story. We know that all the colleges in the country are really, really facing significant challenges with this. None of us have figured out all the answers yet, but together we're working hard to get more answers, and that's what we want. We want people who are committed to finding more answers.
Thank you, Carol. That's very important information to pass on. In our next slide, you'll see here an example of enrollment data that we're asking you to provide based on your fall 2012 data submission for iPads. This is an example. And then following that, you'll see a template that we're going to be asking you to fill out. The document you initially downloaded, when we look at those 6 steps that you need to take, the document that has the RFP questions on it that you're going to draft your responses, you'll be able to download the data template from that document, or you can download it also from once you're online and you're filling out the RFP online. You'll be able to download that document. Next, in our we're also asking for graduation rate data, and here's an example of what a completed template could look like. As with the enrollment data template, you can complete the graduation data template you'll find in the RFP document on our website, and you can upload it, or you can download the template while you're online completing the proposal. Carol, anything to add about data requirements before we move on?
Yeah, thanks, Leslie. These charts, these templates should be fairly easy for you to fill out because it's very parallel to the kind of data you have to report to other sources. Often we get colleges who are concerned that they may not have strong IR departments. They may not have a lot of people working there. They may have some new people working there. I would just say that we rely heavily on data analysis and Achieve the Dream. We do data-driven decision-making. That's what we preach and try to practice. But we have worked with colleges that are across the spectrum in terms of their starting point with IR capacity. We've had colleges that have started with nobody in their IR offices. We've had colleges that start with 7 people in their offices. So what we're really trying to do here is to say, give you a taste of some of the basic data that you need, and we are committed to working with you over time and improving your own capacity to generate the data that's going to have the most meaning for the decisions that you need to make.
Thanks, Carol. Okay, and then moving on to the next slide, you'll see here a signature screen. So before you submit your completed proposal, we're asking that each of the 6 required core team members provide his or her name and title, as well as acknowledge commitment. Okay. The next one, we're going to I'll just have a screen here for you to see who you can contact if you have particular questions down the road. If you have any questions about any technical assistance, you can contact Melanie Mulvey, and you see her email address there. For program and other related information, you can reach out to Carol Lincoln or me. You see our information there. And for questions about funding requirements, you can send, or any other funding questions, you can send an email to Mark Modeman, our Chief Financial Officer. All right, let's just talk for a minute about important deadlines and selection criteria. I'm sure that's on your mind. As you can see on the screen here in this timeline, December 6th is the day the final day that proposals are due, and you'll receive a response from us by mid-January 2014. If you're accepted into the network, your readiness assessment will be due at least 60 days prior to our kickoff Institute for the 2014 cohort, which will take place from June 16th through the 19th. So the readiness assessment would be due by April 18th. The Kickoff Institute for planning purposes would start on June 16th. Okay, and our selection criteria. Since Achieving the Dream's mission is to improve student success at the nation's community colleges, particularly for students of color and low-income students, special consideration will be given to those colleges serving high percentages of students of color and or low-income students. However, these special considerations do not disqualify any eligible college from responding to the request for proposal. A team of reviewers will rank the proposals, looking for strong evidence of commitment to increasing student success and equity. And reviewers will also be looking for the college's vision of how participation in Achieving the Dream will improve the college overall, as well as for its willingness to look critically at the institution's current efforts and outcomes and its openness to change. Reviewers will weigh the college's readiness for this work equally with the college's need for the work and growth potential. And Carol mentioned some of this. Is there anything you'd like to just say about this in addition, Carol?
Well, one additional thought I had was that everybody ought to be thinking about this work as building upon what you've already done. You should not be thinking about Achieving the Dream as a separate project that you're undertaking. If you're already working on several national initiatives or regional initiatives, Achieving the Dream is meant to build around and upon that so that you have a more comprehensive approach to your student success and completion agenda. So as you're looking at the application, filling it out, and talking about this with your team, think about where Achieving the Dream adds value, can help you round out the picture, maybe in some cases provide the umbrella under which you're going to organize and orchestrate other things that are already ongoing on your campus. Just don't think about it as an either-or situation. This is a process and a strategy for really broadening, deepening, and improving the outcomes of what you're already starting to do on your campuses.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that concludes our portion of the presentation, and now we'd like to give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. As I said earlier, we haven't received any questions from you throughout the webinar, so maybe that means that you were just so intently listening. But if you have any now, please either raise your hand and we'll unmute you, or send a question. Before we do that, though, I would like to respond. We did get one question that people sent in when they registered for the webinar, and this one question had to do with the impact that Achieving the Dream has had on improving completion and graduation rates. So Carol is going to just take a few moments to address that. We think it's an important question.
Thanks, Leslie. It's the right question. It's the big question everybody wants to ask. So when you think about 200 colleges, 175 active in the network, What you've got is you've got a mix of colleges, some who've been at this work in a very focused way for up to 10 years now, and others who just began the work last year, at least began their Achieving the Dream engagement. I know colleges have worked for a long time on trying to increase their student success. So we are tending to look for results out of some of the colleges that have been here for a while. When you're in Achieving the Dream, we ask you to go through about a 1-year-long planning process first before you start putting in new strategies that you haven't tried before. So by the time you put those new strategies in place, you've tested them, you've improved upon them, you're 2-3 years maybe into this experience before you can really say, I wonder if this is making a difference in a big way. So I tried to pull a couple of stories from colleges that have been at this for a while. One of them is South Texas College, which is down in the southern portion of Texas, serving a large Hispanic population. And what they've been able to do in the last 4 years is they have improved their graduation rate, their 3-year graduation rate, which you know is what IPET's data is currently looking at. They've gone from 11.7% to 18.7%. So they've had a 7 percentage point gain. Now, on one hand, that sounds like, gee, I wish it were bigger. But on the other hand, they're talking about the whole cohort of their students, the whole group of students that enrolled. They have been able to bump it up from under a 12% success rate to over an 18% rate in 4 years. That is very significant for an institution that size. I pulled another one. Northern Virginia is a large institution over in the suburban D.C. area. And on their completion credentials, they started looking at a metric about attaining a credential within 4 years. What they found is they, too, have bumped up the credential attainment rate by 8 percentage points, having gone from about 12% plus in 08-09 to about 24%. Excuse me, that's their Asian students have gone to 24. All of their students have gone up by 8. Their Asians have gone up by 12%. But here's another figure that from NOVA that I think is really impressive. When they sliced their data according to low-income students as measured by whether or not they were receiving financial assistance, that completion rate has gone up from a little over 12 to a little over 22%. So they've had a 10 percentage point gain in about a 4 or 5 year period. That's amazing. They've actually done better with their low-income students than they have with their non-low-income students. I suspect it's because they put such a laser-like focus on making sure that they're doing things that will matter for low-income students and for students of color. I have one other story that I'm always impressed by, and that is the first Aspen Prize winner was Valencia Community College. You probably all know that. And Valencia's been in Achieving the Dream since 2004. Valencia has also been tracking data for a long, long time, and they have recently released an analysis of 10 years of data looking at college completion rates. They have disaggregated it by whether or not students start out needing developmental ed, and if so, how many levels below college ready. And they've looked at it in terms of low income and other data. What their data are saying is that they have now succeeded in cutting in half the time it takes their students to reach a credential. So if in the past, let me just say, if they had gotten to a 30% completion rate within, let's say, 10 years, they're now able to get to a 30% completion rate within 5 years. So they've cut in half the amount of time it takes to get to that old level that they were at previously. And this is holding true for even the ones that are in developmental ed starting at that level. The developmental ed students aren't completing at the same rate. There's not as many having completed that, but it's still twice as many as what it used to be in that amount of time. So cutting by half the time, doubling the number who are actually succeeding, and being able to track that has really transformed that institution, made it possible for them to think about what more they can do, how they can continue to bump up those numbers. And it's a marvelous success story that we can all learn a lot from. So those are 3 examples of some of the more experienced colleges and what they've been able to do in about 10 years' time in Valencia's case, and in 4 and 5 years' time with South Texas and Northern Virginia's case.
Thanks, Carol. Those are excellent examples. I'm looking now at some of the questions that you've submitted, and I'm going to read one, and we'll respond to it. You write, I'd like to print out the general information and submission guidelines and other materials on your website, and I'm unable to do so. Will that and other materials be made available for printing and distribution? And Melanie is going to respond to that.
Thanks, Leslie. This is Melanie Mulvey. I'm a program coordinator at Achieving the Dream. So if you visit our website that hosts the RFP materials that we mentioned earlier, and you click on those links, those are the blue highlighted documents, it'll bring you to those documents, and on the left-hand corner at the bottom, there will be a button that says download. So you should be able to click on that and have it download automatically on your computer. If you have any issues with that, please feel free to email me, and you saw my email in the last slide that will be made available on our website as well. But my email is mmulvey, M-U-L-V-E-Y, @achievingthedream.org, and you can also find that online.
Thanks, Melanie. So are there any other questions? Okay, so one person asks, can you work in the application, save it, and come back? And I'm going to let Melanie respond to that. I think the answer is no.
So sadly, you have to go through the application all the way through and submit it. There is no option to save it. And we did that to streamline the process, because otherwise you would have had to create an extra login and a new password to go through. So we wanted to make this as simple as possible. So this is why we provide the RFP questions document beforehand, so that you can draft with your core team those answers and go through them. And then when you decide that you're ready to submit your application, you can click on the button at the bottom of our RFP website and go through and simply copy and paste from a Word document or wherever you're working out of. But I would recommend not starting the application until you've gone through everything and it's polished and you're ready to submit.
Thank you. Okay, what is the kickoff date? So if you, it's June 16th through the 19th, and you'll see that in our various documents when you go on our website, as we've shown you. You'll see it in the general information and submission guidelines. There's a page on dates and deadlines. You'll also see it when we post, and I'll tell you about that in a second, when we post this webinar. You'll see that slide. So again, it's June 16th through the 19th. Another question, is the 10-year data collected by Valencia College available on the ATD website? Carol?
We don't have that on the website, but we could certainly ask Valencia if they're willing to have us share that with people who are on the webinar. We'll be happy to ask them if they're willing to do that.
And I will add that one of the benefits of being an ATD college is that you do have access to this kind of data. Any other questions? Okay. Well, before you go, I would just like to ask if you would do one thing for us. It's always important to us to know if we've been effective and helpful. So please take a moment, if you would, to respond to a simple online poll or survey that you'll see in your side of your screen. And there are just several questions, and all you have to do is click on the statements, or several statements, excuse me. Click on the ones that you agree with. So if you could just take a minute or so to do that now. Just a few more seconds, and then we'll close the poll. Thank you so much for staying to do that. I do have one more question here that's come in that I want to read. The question is, I realize that ATD has been focused on institutions where students of color are in the minority, but I'm not aware of the involvement of schools where students of color have a significant majority. How would the participation of this type of school be viewed?
I assume this is coming from an institution where perhaps it's a Hispanic serving institution, or perhaps it's a historically black serving institution, or maybe it's even a Native American institution. We have colleges like that in our network. So for example, we have 3 tribal colleges are part of the Achieving the Dream network. We have, I've kind of forgotten the numbers now, but we have a significant number that have qualified as Hispanic serving institutions, and perhaps a smaller number serving African American students. This is not an issue for us. This is fine. These students are certainly the students that we're trying to focus more attention on, because as you look at the data for those groups nationally, you find that their success rates are typically lagging behind the success rates of Caucasian and some Asian populations, though not all Asian populations. So it's really, I don't see a problem with that. We would enjoy and welcome your application to Achieve the Dream.
Okay, thank you. And any last questions? Sarah has a question she wants to.
So this isn't a question. I just noticed that one of our colleges mentioned that they're bringing some folks to the DREAM conference in February. And we're very excited to hear that. I think, and Carol, I'm sure you agree, this is a great way to really start to get to know Achieving the Dream and start to build your core team. I can actually say I've been to tons of conferences, and there's nothing quite like DREAM. It is for rolling up your sleeves and getting work done, not just talking heads. And so I encourage anyone who can come to please consider that. And I think registration is actually now open for that. Carol, do you want to say anything about DREAM?
I'm just really glad you said that, because we highly recommend that if you can, if you've got the time and the ability to be there this year, it's certainly not required of you to come to DREAM this year. It will be, you will be expected to come to DREAM once you've joined Achieving the Dream formally. We invite you to come and kick the tires. There'll be 1,600 people there probably. That's what's been, how many have been attending the last couple of years. They come from all of our institutions. They are presidents, they're faculty leaders, they're chief academic officers, heads of student services, IR folks. It's the variety. It's essentially the people who you're putting on core teams and data teams and others who are leading the work on your campus. And it is it's an event where the majority of the time is spent with presentations and workshops that are given by Achieving the Dream colleges. And their workshops, you don't get permission to give a workshop at DREAM, unless you've got data to support what you're talking about. So you need evidence that what you've done is having an impact, or perhaps it's not, because we're as interested in the cases where something doesn't work, trying to figure out why, as we are when it does work. So it's a good opportunity for you to check it out, catch the enthusiasm, and really get a head start on your own work.
Okay, thank you. And while you were talking, Carol, we got another question or two in, so let me take a look at those. Someone asked, what faculty leaders are usually on the core team?
So very often colleges put maybe a faculty leader who's, if you've got a unionized faculty, they may put a union member on. If you've got a substantive developmental education population, they may put a developmental education faculty on. If you've got other faculty who are recognized, well-respected, they're influential, regardless of what subject area they may be in, those are the kind of people you want to go after, the ones that people are going to listen to and follow their examples.
Okay, thanks, Carol. Another question, how complicated and time-consuming is the student cohort data upload? Where can I find the details of what's required for data submission? So if you look at the RFP, both the document that we have on our website that you can draft your materials, you'll see information in there about what's required. You'll see an example of a completed template, and you'll see what a blank template looks like. You can download the template from that practice RFP document on our website, and you can also download the template from when you're actually online filling out the proposal. Melanie, did you have something you wanted to add something about that document? No.
Only that it's not as time consuming as it might look
on first glance.
At first glance. Personally, I know I get a little frightened when I look at too many numbers, but this data is pretty consistent with what your school has submitted already, and we're just looking for a copy of that data.
Yes, thank you.
Leslie,
yes.
Was that question aimed at the data question in the RFP, or in general for the work of ATD, once you join ATD, the work you have to do?
Oh, I see. That's not clear, but maybe the person who, oh, okay, there was clarification here. So the question is for in general, once you join.
So I think we have to be honest about that there, it does take time to organize your data sets in a way that is compatible with all of the data that's going into our national database. And your data coach can certainly provide some suggestions for how you can go about that. There's also some help available from the contractors that keep that national database. For us, they're called JBL Associates. We would recommend that you, when you call your leader college contact, ask them how they went about doing it. They will probably tell you that the first time they created their data set, it took them quite a while to do it. But in subsequent years, once the programming has been set, it's faster to submit in subsequent years. But the first year, it will take some time, and you may run into some problems. We can help you by giving you the requirements early on so that you're not in a jam to do it all in a very quick period of time. But we can give you those kinds of guidelines early in the spring so that you have plenty of time to make the dates for data submission.
Carol, this is Sarah. I want to just add a few, just a little bit more about the database. I know that we have a great team working on the database, and that they're really working to improve the data tools that are available to colleges through this database. So, you know, we don't just take your data, but what we do is we use it for benchmarking and also to help colleges, something called data tools, which allow colleges to go on and pull cohort data easily. So, there might be some steps involved in getting the data into the database. But again, I would suggest talking to the Leader College about those steps, and then, if you have questions about the tools available connected to the database, once your data is uploaded, I think there's a lot more detail there that we can explain to you, and you just feel free to reach out to any of the ATD staff, and we'll connect you with the correct person to give you those details.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. We have another question here. It reads, do you suggest that we go ahead and register for the DREAM conference before we have our official acceptance? If so, can we be reimbursed if our college were to not be accepted?
Well, we'd really rather not get into a reimbursement situation. It just makes a lot of paperwork for you and for us. So the problem is, though, let's see, we will let people know in early January. I think registration will still be open at that point, so you should be okay. Check on our website. Does anybody on the team at ATD know when we're closing registration for DREAM?
We don't offhand, but if anybody wants to know that, we can.
Yeah, so the safer thing to
Sarah
do, of course, is, pardon?
Sarah might have that.
I'm sorry, I actually don't. I thought I did, but I don't know exactly when it closes. But I think what I would also say is, even if for some reason you're not accepted to the Achieving the Dream Network, I think the benefits of DREAM are paramount for your college going and having a team there towards moving their student success work forward. So it's not a only those in ATD must attend type of event, but really I think a useful event for all colleges, whether they're a part of Achieving the Dream or not.
So bottom line, what we need to do is to check the date for closing registration. But I believe that you'll be notified early enough in January. You can wait if that's what you feel you need to do. You are welcome to come to DREAM whether you're accepted or not.
Okay, we have one more question here. I'm glad that you're thinking of these things before you go, and that you can ask them of us. This question reads, what can you say about how AQIP colleges have integrated those quality initiatives with ATD initiatives?
Carol, do you want to take that, or?
Sure. So a number of our colleges have been going through reaccreditation the same time that they've been in Achieving the Dream, and they've really been able to integrate the two quite nicely. There's a couple of colleges that have gone through that experience. If you send us an email, if you'd like to know the names of a couple of colleges you might touch base with, we could connect you to them. They will tell you what projects they did, how they integrated them, and what it did for them in terms of accreditation. I know several of them have stories about how because of their Achieving the Dream work, they got no exceptions, no follow-up activities at all on their accreditation. But send us an email if you want to know 2 or 3 colleges that you might contact about that, and we'll connect you.
Okay. Well, I think if you have any additional questions, and you may think of them, you may, as soon as you hang up from this, you'll think, oh, I wish I had asked that. So please feel free to contact the relevant people here. You have our email addresses, and we'll be happy to answer individually whatever it is you'd like to know. I'd like to thank you for joining us today, and I want to especially thank our presenters for their participation. Special thanks to Melanie and Sarah for their technical support in running today's webinar. We're going to post this recorded webinar as soon as possible on the RFP website that you'll become very familiar with, and we'll send out a follow-up email to you when it's available. Thanks again.